be in a charge. They are not happy with the revolutionary attitude in general, whether from Muslim Brotherhood or anybody else, because a revolutionary attitude is contagious.
Yeah, it would endanger their own positions and their own posts as kings.
Yes.
Okay, so still with President Mohammed Morsi, who meets today with a number of Saudi officials at the beginning of his visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The visit aims to discuss means of enhancing bilateral relations and strengthen relations between both nations and leaderships. The newly appointed Crown Prince and Minister of Defense, Prince Salman bin Abdulaziz, comes on top of the officials along with Saudi monarch King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz, who received Morsi yesterday upon his arrival to the Saudi coastal city of Jeddah. On his side, acting presidential spokesman Yasser Ali said both leaders discussed the boosting of joint investments throughout the upcoming time period. Ali added that a number of regional and international issues were also on the agenda. So we'll have this report and we'll be right back with our guest.
President Mohammed Morsi met with the Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz in Riyadh on Wednesday before making a short pilgrimage to Mecca, Islam's holiest site. During their encounter, the two leaders discussed the number of regional and international issues, as well as ways to foster bilateral relations, especially increasing trade and investment cooperation. President Morsi was careful to make Saudi Arabia his first foreign visit, and as Iran topped the agenda of the talks of the two presidents. They reviewed Egyptian-Iranian relations. Ambassador Hani Khalaf, the former Minister for Arab Affairs, earlier said that Morsi would listen to the views of the Saudi king regarding alliances which Saudi Arabia opposed. Observers have added that Iran is likely to be at the top of the agenda, as the president has been invited to the Islamic Republic next August to attend the General Assembly of the Non-Aligned Movement, an organization of 120 members who consider themselves not formally associated with any major world power bloc. Morsi arrived at the King Abdulaziz Airport in Jeddah, where he was greeted by Saudi Crown Prince, and after a state dinner with the Saudi monarch Abdullah bin Abdulaziz, Morsi then headed to the Egyptian consulate, where he met members of Saudi's Egyptian expat community. On Wednesday evening, Morsi performed the Umrah pilgrimage and will head to the city of Medina on Thursday, where he will visit the Mosque of the Prophet before returning to Cairo. Saudi Arabia was one of the first countries to show serious economic support for Egypt, committing more than $4.5 billion American dollars to the country. Saudi Arabia is also a major shareholder in the Islamic Development Bank, which signed a $1 billion American dollar cooperation agreement last week with Egypt to support its food and energy sectors. Some 1.6 million Egyptians live and work in the Saudi Arabia.
Welcome back. So, Mr. Said, what would top Morsi's agenda, or President Morsi's agenda, during discussions with the Saudi king?
Definitely political ones and the later economic ones, because the economic help that Morsi might expect from the Saudis, and definitely we do need and expect some help from our brother there in Saudi Arabia, but they expect something in return too. Even in the report they refer to several of the points that the Saudis are quite interested in, and they want to get reassured from Morsi. One of them is Iran. Well, Iran is not particularly a cup of tea for the Saudis, and they are worried that the sympathetic attitude of the Muslim Brotherhood once they were in the opposition will not be the same, because if they supported, if they are sympathetic with Iran and they wanted to resume relationship with them, that will be a danger and a threat to the Saudis and people in the Gulf. As a matter of fact, it is a threat to the Americans, but since the Gulf and the Americans have their own, they are more than allies, so they want to make sure that Morsi, that Egypt under the leadership of Morsi will not resume or normalize the relationship with Iran again. The same thing with Hamas. Hamas is sort of another branch for Muslim Brotherhood, and they are quite Yes, in Palestine. So they want to make sure that they are not going to support Hamas at the expense of Fatah. And then endanger all the interests of the Saudis and the way they want to help in running the Palestinian issue. Hezbollah is the same thing. They want to make sure that they are not going to support the Hezbollah because they have always been sympathetic with Hezbollah, as a lot of Islamists in Egypt have been always sympathetic with Hassan Nasrallah and the Hezbollah. Not because they are Shia, because Muslim Brotherhood of course are Sunni, but because they were in war against Israel, and he has been a sort of folk hero here in Egypt. But the Saudis have a lot against Hassan Nasrallah, and they want to make sure that Morsi is not going to give him any support. So they expect a lot from Morsi. As a matter of fact, they expect, the ideal president for Saudi Arabia is to be another image of Mubarak. Let's have, the closer you are to Mubarak, the closer you be to our hearts. We may expect that you will be different because we cannot rewind the time once again, but don't go too far from our ex-friend Mubarak.
So they want him to preserve the current situation in the region.
The previous situation.
The previous situation.
Yes, of course.
Before the revolution.
Before the revolution. That will be a great dream that would come true if things come back to normal once again. And that's why they fought a lot to keep Mubarak in position. And that's why they put a lot of pressures on the SCAF to limit a little bit the great pace of a change in Egypt. And they have their own, my modest point of view. It is a very serious thing to regard the Saudis as enemies. They are not. They are a neighbor, that they have their own interests, and we have to respect them. And once a clever politician Dr. Morsi or other people and diplomats try to narrow the gap between us and the Saudis and other countries, and to try to assure them, yes, we are not going to be another Mubarak, and Egypt has become a different country. The present is not like the past, the future will be definitely different. But still, we can keep our common interests together. So I believe, yes, this will not make them 100% happy, but still they are not going to be totally bitter and angry. We can still try to see how the land lies and try to find a common ground and stand on the common ground.
Yeah, so the Arab countries can accept a fresh image of Egypt, but not a changed one.
Once again, I'm not talking about all Arab countries. I'm talking about monarchies. I mean, Saudi Arabia's, people in the Gulf, Jordan to some extent.
The more powerful Arab countries.
And the more concerned, the more anti-revolutionaries. Yes.
So another piece of news about President Morsi during a meeting held with a number of businessmen from the different economic and industrial sectors. President Mohammed Morsi discussed a number of different problems facing businessmen and investors, along with different means to overcome it. Mechanisms meant to support the national output and all plants being out of production came on top of the agenda. The meeting also tackled the provision of incentives for exports, along with a number of competition incentives in both local and regional markets. A step that aims to increase national revenues of foreign currencies and to provide more job opportunities within the local market. On his side, the Minister of Industry and Foreign Trade, Dr. Mahmoud Isa, said new measures to support exports will be funded from the budget of the Exports Development Fund that amounts £3.1 billion within the new fiscal year 2012 and 2013. So how would you comment about these meetings, Mr.
Once again, everybody knows that all the economic problems in Egypt are quite related to the political ones. Definitely, we are not in an enviable situation when it comes to economy. We have a lot of problems. We have a terrible budget deficit. We have a problem subsidizing and supporting our exports, and we have problem with our stopping investments. You know that a lot of investments here, local ones, are faltering and they are under great pressures. Foreign investors, most of them left Egypt, and the people who remained because they have too much business to leave. They are, they are not developing them, and they are worried. So yes, President Morsi has to do a lot. He has, I wouldn't say mission impossible. He has a very difficult mission to boost our economy, but all the problems, all the economic problems are related to the name of the game, stability. So if he is able to regain stability, and the stability is a large word, it means that he's not going to take a decision like the one he has already taken by convening the People Assembly without coordinating with the SCAF and with everybody else, and without consulting a large mainstream of the judiciary. So, and he has to take very wise decisions so he would keep the society unified, more stable, calmer. So I believe if the economy is to take off, then stability has to come in first. Stability, security, and then everything else might be managed.
So President Morsi promised the Egyptians, the whole of the Egyptians, and all of us as well, a number of promises in his first 100 days. Do you think that he is going according to his plan? Is everything going well for him now?
President Morsi has made a lot of promises, too many promises. But I believe the promises are too big to be undertaken within 100 months. I'm not pessimistic. On the contrary, I'm always accused of being over-optimistic. But solving the problem of the traffic alone would take a lot. It takes someone who is confident, who is strong enough, and he is ready to jeopardize angering some people. I mean, if I want to, I'm talking about one single issue, the traffic. Then